It's time for another installment of Sea Hunt. It's Still Alive here on Scuba Shack Radio, and this time we're heading back to Season 1, Episode 7, Mr. Guinea Pig. Well, Mr. Guinea Pig premiered on February 22nd, 1958. The show opens up with Mike in a tank of water exercising with two heavy weight belts. He's working with Dr. Bradley from the university on improving diver lung capacity. Now, he's been able to improve his breath hold to 1 minute and 52 seconds, or a 6% increase since he started. As he and Dr. Bradley are discussing the results, the phone rings. It's for Mike. The call is from Jennie Wallace, one of Mike's old flames. She's back in town, and Mike makes a date for later that evening. In the next scene, we're in the Grotto restaurant. Mike and Jennie are finishing dessert when Jennie tells Mike she's back on the West Coast to do some underwater photography. You see, she's trying to get a job with outdoor sports as an underwater photojournalist, but she needs to get her some shots of a sunken Japanese barge first off of San Diego. Now, Jennie is trying to get Mike to come along, but he isn't interested. His boat's in dry dock. He's got his research. And most importantly, he tells her she needs to give up skin diving before she kills herself. As they're wrapping up dinner, Johnny McGowan comes up to the table. Now he's interested in Jennie. Johnny invites them to come lobstering with him over the weekend. Mike says he can't go. He's too busy with his research. We are then taken back to the tank where Mike is again exercising with those heavy weight belts. He tells us that they have warmed up the water and now he's able to stay under for 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Next, Johnny comes in. Mike thought he would show up. He wants to take Jennie lobstering, but doesn't know where she is. Mike gladly tells him that Jennie is staying at the Hollywood Riviera. Johnny smiles and says, "Thanks, old man." The scene now shifts to Mike's apartment. He's studying some scientific data when the doorbell rings. It's Johnny, and he wants to use Mike's dive equipment. You know, the one that has that helium-nitrogen mix. Well, you guessed it. Jennie has convinced Johnny to dive with her on the wreck. Mike tells Johnny he doesn't have enough experience. He's good in the water, but he's only been diving for 6 months. Plus, Jennie is not a good diver or a dive buddy. We now get the story of Bob Engel. You see, Mike was diving in the Northeast exploring some caves with Jennie and Bob when Mike has a problem with his red. He tells them to stay put until he gets back, but Jennie takes off into the deep. Bob follows, but he also has an issue and bolts to the surface. Worst case of bends Mike has seen, but fortunately there was a chamber on the boat. Jennie shouldn't be diving. He won't rent Johnny any equipment. I guess Mike's conscience gets the better of him. He can't let them put themselves in danger, so he heads over to Jennie's hotel room. She's in her hotel room putting on some nail polish when Mike knocks on the door. He tries to tell her not to dive. Mike grabs her shoulders trying to convince her, but she tells him, "Let go and get out." Then she uses a little psychology and says, if he's so worried, why doesn't he take her? She has a boat, and when Mike asks if there's a compressor on board, she says, "Oh yeah, a new one." As she hugs Mike, she tells him that he doesn't have to worry. And then she gives him a big kiss. Mike says this should be strictly business, and he'll pick her up at 5 o'clock to head to San Diego. We next see Mike at his place packing up his gear. The doorbell rings again, and in comes Johnny, and he's not happy. He says no one gets ahead of Mike Nelson and tells him he's been double-crossed by Mike. He punches Mike, who gets up and stares eyeball to eyeball and asks Johnny if he wants to go a few rounds. Johnny turns and leaves. We're now at the dock in San Diego. As they board the boat, Jennie introduced Mike to Captain Mariana. The wreck is 3 miles out, and as they arrive, Mike tells Jennie to follow his instruction and watch for his signs. Somehow, I think Jennie may not do that. As they jump overboard, Captain Mariana shouts, "Good hunting." Their searches come up empty until they have less than 5 minutes of air left. That's when the barge appears. With little time, Mike signals an ascent, and they both head to the surface to change tanks. Back on board the boat, Jennie comes out with her camera, but Mike tells her there's plenty of time for that. He wants to check out the integrity of the barge first. Jennie pouts and agrees to leave the camera behind. As they head back down, Mike tells the captain to make sure the tanks are filled. When they reach the barge, Mike instructs Jennie to stay put until he gets back from checking out the barge. Of course, she doesn't listen, heads into the barge, and you guessed it, gets stuck. Back topside, Captain Mariana is trying to start the portable compressor. It won't turn over, and now Jennie's running low on air. So Mike takes off his doubles and leaves them for Jennie while he heads to the surface for another tank. But there is no tank. The miserable compressor is not new, and according to the captain, someday it works, some days it doesn't. Mike has no choice. He must free dive down to the barge at 41 feet in icy cold water with a crowbar and try to free her. When he reaches Jennie, she can't reach his doubles, so he needs to reposition the doubles. Not sure why he didn't take a breath off of him, but he can't stay down any longer. He heads to the surface. She only has 3 minutes of gas left. He heads back down, and just before he needs to ascend again, the rebar cracks, and Jennie is free. They slowly rise to the surface. As they sit on the back of the boat, Jennie tells Mike, "You don't have to say it. I'll never go diving again." Mike's training and research with the university and Dr. Bradley has paid off. Captain Mariana tells him that he was down there for 3 minutes. So that's Mr. Guinea Pig from Season 1 of Sea Hunt.